guys, welcome back to the pod. I'm Janice.
I'm Davine.
And here we are back again for another episode. And again, just to keep up that attitude of gratitude from throughout this year, what are you feeling grateful for, like, since our last pod?
It's been a while, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's been like 3-4 weeks.
I think all the opportunities we've gotten so far, like speaking at the Mix, speaking at God's House, both of them went so well. I think it's such an honour to have a talk in such a big crowd in front of that many people, and like God's using us in these ways. So I think definitely knowing that, like, I think this is an anointed role for us, because even though we're not perfect, not always doing the right thing necessarily, we're still elevated to these positions. So yeah, I think that.
Yeah, cool. Genuinely, I think that's mine too. Is genuinely just like the opportunities. Not even like, this is what I had in my head anyways before this. So I guess it's kind of just like a confirmation, you know.
Never unoriginal.
Well, mine is also opportunity. You can be grateful for the same thing.
Yeah, I guess.
But yeah, like just like being able to use my voice to speak to people about like God's kingdom is really cool. And it's definitely not something I thought I'd be doing. It's like speaking to like huge groups of people and stuff. So it is very cool to be able to do that. And I'm very grateful that like, first of all, that we're being offered these opportunities. Second of all, that God is genuinely like using us for that. And that also like he equips us with what we need to be able to do those things. Because I know that if I had to do it in my strength, I wouldn't be doing that. And I would not be getting up on stage. So yeah, I'm just very grateful for the opportunities that we receive and people that are giving us these opportunities, but also to God for, letting me use that.
As Tasha Cobb says, not by might, not by power, but...
Not by...
No,
wrong song. No, wrong one.
Not by might, not by power. Oh, never mind. You made me sing and you still didn't... Oh, so you're a fake Christian. You don't even know... Okay, guys, please put in the comments. You know, like, I don't know what song it's called, but like, Not by Might by Tasha Cobbs Leonard.
Oh, I know what song about now. Sorry, it took me a while to clock then.
But if I sang some Glorilla, you'd probably know that song, wouldn't you?
No, because I had a different... But I not just sing a different song?
You.
I don't even listen to... Guys, quick, let me just run this back. I actually don't listen to Glorilla.
If I sang some Drake, you'd probably recognise that, wouldn't you?
Depends on the song. Depends on the song, guys. Like, my inbuilt Shazam wasn't working, you know?
Inbuilt Shazam.
We just lost an hour of sleep today. So, like, my brain is just not on... Yeah, you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just not on.
No, I actually stayed awake for the first time to watch the time change. And it was so freaky, you know? Like, it was 1, and then it wasn't 1, you know?
No, I used to stay awake for it. And then, like, I think now I feel like I'm at the age now where I'm like, nah, I need to get sleep in. I need to get to bed now.
Fair enough, yeah.
So I was like, yeah. Because I'm only losing hours, I can't lose more time asleep, so I forced myself to go to bed.
True, yeah. So Janice, you had an idea for like a new mini-series in the pod. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so I had an idea that we could do like a little series where we start to like break down like things that I like guess like commonly said in church, because I feel like there's certain things that are like kind of not like thrown out there and like we say a lot as part of like our Christian lingo, but like it's really breaking down to see like what they mean, like how we can like implement them, but also like how we may deal with those things, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so, there's definitely a lot of Christian jargon, because I saw this like meme online and I was like talking about, it was like this guy pretending to be like a pastor and using all the Christian buzzwords, like, Lord, just like fill our cups, God, you know, we want you as our foundation, you know, Jesus be the center. I was like, obviously to like more seasoned Christian it makes sense, but if you're new to the church, like, what is going on, you know?
Yeah. Like, I feel like some of them you can like, kind of get the grips, like kind of like, not like get the grips, but you kind of like
grist?
have like a bit, the grip, get to grips of what it kind of means, like the base.
Sorry, I had to.
My brain is not on. But no, you can kind of get like a basic understanding of like, fill my cup, kind of like, kind of I guess like filling of the spirit. But like, again, do I just know that because I'm like more of a seasoned Christian?
Yeah.
Or even like Jesus be the foundation, like this is something for me, which is actually what we're going to talk on today. But it's like, you kind of understand what they're saying, but like, what does it really mean? Like, what actually is...
This lip service, it sounds really good and sounds really profound, but like, at the end of the day, what are we actually doing?
Yeah. So yeah, today that's why we're going to delve into, like, what does it mean to have Christ as your foundation? You know? Oh, guys, banging song, Firm Foundations, listen to that. That's just random, off topic, but it's just a great song. But yeah, so I got a little definition of what like foundations mean. Sorry, let me find it on my phone. Because again, like we have foundations like a house, foundations everywhere, but yeah. So a foundation is the solid base or groundwork upon which a structure, organization, or idea rests. Which I thought was like quite cool to like look at what foundation actually means.
Yeah.
Because what do you mean like the idea like something rests? So like for us, okay, our life should, like we say, should be based on like Christ, like at the center of our foundation. But like sometimes it's hard to grasp like whether like my life is actually founded on God. And like I think something that really helped me to know like whether like this is my foundation as of right now, or like is like knowing where I base it off of. So I did a message with one of my youth leaders like maybe like a couple of years ago to like some of the youth, and we have like this visual thing that really helped me picture what it meant to have like your foundation. So it was kind of like, okay, so the things that make up who I am, so let's just say like my job, my friendships, my education, like those are the things that like make me who I am. And obviously there's other things to me, or like I do the podcast. But say I'm basing my foundation off of, let's just say, I don't know, like an education, then that means that that's the root of like who I am, my life comes from, but everything else is branched off from that. But what happens if one day I get a bad grade and then, or like I fail, let's just say like a big exam, like my GCSEs or something, like then who I am all crumbles down from that too. Because if my education's gone, that means that, oh, apparently maybe I'm not qualified for my job. Oh, maybe I'm not good enough to be friends with because maybe I'm not smart enough to even have conversations, and all these things. So basically everything that makes you who you are shakes from that. And obviously that's not the place that we're meant to be in. And like, if that's what I'm basing my, like, I guess my identity or like my foundation on, then nothing in my life will ever be like solid. Nothing in my life will ever be like stable, basically.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
That's definitely so true. Like, I think the reason people don't understand like what it means to have Christ's foundation, because if you have the literal definition of the word, like something you base like your life upon, that makes sense. But then people assume that if Jesus is your foundation, everything else should be perfect, right? Because your foundation is perfect, so surely everything that comes from it should be perfect as well. And yes, obviously, every gift that's from God is good, but it doesn't mean our life will be perfect. Like Jesus literally said to us that, also your life will be better, but you're still gonna face the same struggles that everyone else does.
Yeah.
But it's just different because I have you.
100%.
So it's like in Matthew 7, again, which is what the song Foundation is on. So it's Matthew 7, I think like 20. Yeah, so it's about the wise and foolish builder. So it says, therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house. Yet it did not fall, because it had its foundation on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house, but it fell with a great crash. And in both these things, like, they're both, the guy with Jesus and without Jesus, they're both facing the storm, but one of them is just better off because regardless of, like you say, the other things that he's in his life, like your education or your friends or school, even when those crumble down, you still have your foundation. But on the man on the sand, he had no foundation because, you've all been to the beach, And
you know what wet sand gets like. And that's the thing. Like me, if I'm basing my my life on my education, I'm building my life on the sand. And like, if something bad happens one day, that is just going to crumble down. But when you build Jesus like as your foundation, and everything else stems off from it, so like I guess like my education, my work. So if I one day lose let's just say I fail an exam again, I'm not going to lose everything else that makes me who I am. Everything in my life isn't going to crumble because I've still got that stable foundation. Again, if one day I lose my job, I'm still who I am because I've got Christ at the center of my life, and I know that it will work out. Because like Davine said, like life was never promised to be top tier shape, like everything's gonna be 10/10 all the time just because you follow Jesus. It genuinely just means that you have somebody with you through it all, somebody who's fighting in your corner, who's carrying your burdens, but also like, I guess, giving you peace through situations where you may not be able to feel peaceful. So yeah, I think another good example is Job. And I was doing a bit into research because Job went through it. Job went through a huge trial and stuff, but his identity and his foundation was Jesus. Like, I was looking into it and I was like, what was everything that Job actually lost throughout this whole entire season?
Have you seen those memes where it's like, when I'm crying out to God, it's like, oh no, I don't know, I got a bad test and the weather's so bad. And then Job's like, you don't know what a bad day is, bro. You do not know what a bad day is.
Like, well, that's the thing. Like, if our bad days are nothing compared to Job's. So throughout this season, just genuinely, if you have time, no, not if you have time, like, if you want to do a study on a book and maybe you're going through like a situation where you kind of need more like perseverance, or like you want to see how, like, I guess like God maybe carried somebody through a season, go read the book of Job, man, because honestly it's crazy. So one of the things that Job lost was his wealth and possessions. So Job was really wealthy. He was a wealthy man, but he lost 7,000 sheep, which were killed or stolen. He lost 3,000 camels because they were stolen. 500 yoke of oxen because they were stolen. 500 donkeys because, again, they were stolen. Many of his servants who were killed during raids and disasters. So first of all, that's one thing. His wealth. He has lost all of these things that are giving him money. He is a wealthy man. He has lost his servants. Like, that's a lot.
We're not farmers, so you won't fully understand the depth of that. But like, think about, I don't know, like Jeff Bezos. He is what? Amazon or?
He's something.
Amazon, yeah. I think it's Amazon. If it's not, it's really embarrassing for me. But it's like him losing, I don't know, all of his stock in one day.
Like all of his stock, all of his delivery vans, all of his workers. Like, what do you do then? Like, that's one thing in itself. Like, if Joe was basing his life off of his wealth and I guess like what he could offer because of his wealth, first of all, his life would have came crashing down at just this one point. And obviously, like, losing income is never anything that's like not without stress, because it's kind of like, oh, how am I meant to provide for my family? How are we meant to eat? How are we meant to do this? But again, because he's basing like his life off on God, like, I guess he knows like God is going to carry him through despite everything that happened to him.
Yeah, definitely.
So cool.
And I think like, as Christians, we shouldn't like, beat ourselves up too much when we struggle with like, keeping God as our foundation. Because for me, I see like, when God is my foundation, everything I do revolves around Him. So every decision I make is like, God, what do you want for this? Like, God, what is your plans? I think it's like Proverbs like 16 talks about like, in our heart we like have our plans, but God establishes our steps. So
yeah.
Where was I going with that? Oh man. Oh yes, sorry. So as Christians, it's not like the end of the world, because like we're not always gonna have Jesus as foundation. Realistically, we will struggle with idolatry. And I think in our head, I see an idol as like, I don't know, like a picture of Jesus that I worship, you know. But idolatry is as simple as putting things before God and like making that like your God. It can be something. It can be your grades. Like your grades can be your idol.
100%. Like your grades, your phone, like your friendships, like everything in your life can genuinely become like an idol, and it's so easy to interchange these things. Like, and that's the thing. Like your foundation may not, I guess, if it's not God, but you could base it off different things. So in one season it could be your education. The next thing could be like your phone. The next season it could be like your friends. Like, it's like interchangeable, but it's still not putting something that's like not God at the center of your life. But I'm gonna quickly like go back to Job real quick. So and just quickly run through the other things that he lost before like carry on. But so a second thing that he lost was his children. All 10 of his children, his 7 sons and 3 daughters, were killed when a house collapsed during a feast. So he's lost his wealth. He's lost all of his kids. So genuinely, if that was me, I'd be in the trenches. I'd actually be in the trenches. Like, what do you mean I've lost everything? Practically. And then, on top of that, Job lost his health. So he was afflicted with painful sores all over his body, which caused like intense physical suffering. So I'm facing emotional suffering, mental suffering, and physical suffering, while also mourning my kids. And also, I have no money, no source of income. Like, what? And then, last of all, like, he lost his social standing and support. So he lost his status and his respect in society. His friends initially came to comfort him, but ended up accusing him of wrongdoing. His wife told him to curse God and die, and showing his loss of emotional support. So you've lost your wealth, you've lost all your kids, you're not healthy anymore, then you've lost your social standing and support. So from here, like, it's genuinely like, where do you go? Like, he lost everything that made him who he was. And like I said earlier, like, if he was basing his identity on any of those things, like, his whole life would have come crashing down. I mean, I know for me personally, if one of those things happened to me, I'm going to feel like I'm in the trenches, like I keep saying. I'm going to feel like everything's crashing down. But because he had Jesus' foundation, like, none of that would have been easy to go through. Like, again, like losing all your income, not easy. Grief is definitely not an easy thing at all. Like even your health, not an easy thing when you're like really sick, because it's like, oh, like why am I suffering so much? And even losing like all your support, like on this earth, like I don't even know, like that's just crazy to me.
Yeah, obviously to the average person, like that extent of like tragedy isn't going to happen. But at the end of the day, life is still very uncertain. Like you can control what you do, but you can't control what happens as soon as you leave your house, you know. And that causes a lot of people like anxiety. We're talking about anxiety today in the youth, but because everything's so uncertain in our life, it causes us to overthink and be really irrational about these things. But unless Jesus is our foundation, we won't have any certainty in that, because when we leave our house, things can happen to us, and that's true, you know. But the only thing that remains constant and will never falter is like God's love for you and God's like promises He has for you.
Yeah, 100%. And even today in youth, one of our youth leaders was saying about, so he was reading something that he wrote, but he was saying about anxiety. The only thing that would cure like your anxiousness is like having a certain answer. And I know, obviously, and in our rational brains, we try and search for an answer which we can't really get until it happens. Like we don't know. But the one thing that is certain is that God will be there today, tomorrow, and forever. He is like the same. He loves you unconditionally. Like these are the things that don't change. And like again, just because like obviously he's there, like we still gotta like choose to like give these things to him. We still gotta choose to like make him our foundation. But like Davina was saying earlier, like it's not about like condemning yourself if Jesus isn't our foundation, because in different seasons of our lives, like we may genuinely just make things an idol without realizing, or you might realize it, but it's about what you do from that matters. Like when you do realize, oh, maybe Jesus isn't my foundation, like I want to get back to a place where he is like what my life is revolving around, and it's like making that conscious choice and effort, I think.
Definitely, yeah. And obviously, I said now that sometimes when we can struggle to keep God's foundation when it's all these idols. And I think I want to go to the scripture of, I think it's Matthew 5, about how you can't serve two masters. You either love one, hate the other. And it's kind of a weird concept that with God you're either for Him or against Him. There's no fence you can be on. It's you're for or against God. And that doesn't mean that when you're struggling, like, and you're idolizing your phone, for example, that God immediately hates you and He's gonna put judgment upon you immediately. It's like you said, it's a constant process of working. Like, but I want to keep you as my foundation, but I'm really struggling, you know. Like, I'm trying to fill this void in my heart with my phone to distract myself from my problems or people, or trying to make myself feel better, like getting good grades. But it's always working towards like your goal of Jesus. Like it's not like a one and done, God's my foundation, it's never gonna change. It's a constant process of being a Christian.
Yeah, and I think like, and that's not to say like your phone, education, all that is inherently bad, but it just depends like what your intentions are for that. So for me, okay, let's just say my grades, and like a way to bring it back to God, because obviously God cares about your education, like He cares about like these things, because otherwise we wouldn't have it. Like, but it could be a thing of like, okay, so I'm gonna strive to be like the best person I can be and do well in my education, because God has blessed me with an education. B, also with like the passion to do something, but also C, like He's not gonna want to see you like fail. But even if you do, like there's a plan through that. Like as long as you know you've done your best, but like striving to do that like with your intention. I don't know how to word what I'm trying to say. Just, I don't know if what I'm saying makes sense.
Makes sense, yeah.
But like you're not doing it with the intention of like, I'm gonna get these grades because I need it for like my own personal glory, but because actually God has blessed me with education. I should like not like take advantage, but like try my best to use them to like glorify God through that, if that makes sense. I don't know.
That's so true. Everything that can be towards the glory of God, like just as simple as like going for a walk through nature, is for the glory of God. I think it's interesting. So like from Matthew 6, because like you cannot serve both God and money, but then it leads on. I think people forget, as a context, people forget that the Bible wasn't written to be like chapters and like, because usually there'll be let's say in a chapter in a chapter of like a book, there'll be like the titles, won't it? So it'll be like, do not worry, or treasures in heaven. But people forget that it was meant to be one long scripture. So if you read it all at once, it creates such a beautiful picture. Like, so no one can serve two masters. Either you'll hate one and love the other, or you'll be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. Therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you'll eat, or what you'll drink, or about your body. But it's like, it just makes so much sense in conjunction with another, because because you're not idolizing other things, and because God is your foundation, you don't have to worry about the rest of these things.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And that's not to say that you might not worry, but again, even like we're talking today in youth, it's about like giving that to God and praying into it and being like, oh, like, God, help me not to feel anxious in this. Like, no matter what the outcome is, help me to be okay with what you want for my life. And it's like, bringing that back to God and who he is. But that's the thing. It's really cool to see the like verses like side by side. Because like Devine said, like the Bible was written not with verses, literally just with chapters. So sometimes when you do read all of it, it's like, oh, like this makes a lot of sense. And it's just really cool to see it like that and how like it was intended to be read.
Yeah.
But this is not to say that like God doesn't care. God doesn't want obviously us to struggle. God doesn't want us to like have bad lives. He just wants us to like trust in him because he's got such like a greater plan for us than we could ever imagine. Yeah.
Definitely. But I think the final point is that sadly, even when God is our foundation, sometimes people persecute us because of that. Like it's talking about Joseph. Like Joseph was like locked in from day one. Like his brother sold him to slavery, and then he went to obviously to Egypt, slavery. But he just kept getting into more and more trouble, even though God was his foundation. But because he trusted in God through all that, he was eventually exalted. And that people like don't forget that when God is your foundation, nothing can get in the way of God's plan. Even when it looks like dire, no one is strong enough to like halt what God wants to your life.
Yeah, 100%. Like even with Joseph as an example, like somewhere in the word says they hate you because they hated me first. Because Christ was his foundation, obviously now he is like the favorite brother. His brothers hate him for that, so they sell him away. Like bro ends up in prison. Bro ends up like doing loads of stuff. Like, but like the was saying, like throughout that whole thing, like God was still his foundation, and like it wasn't easy, and it didn't mean that like everything in his life went swimmingly, because obviously we see like it didn't go swimmingly, but like it just meant that like it was a bit easier with God.
Yeah.
Like, and it meant that someone was there carrying his burden, someone was looking after him and protecting him, and like that's like really comforting because like the world will hate you. Well, not everyone will say, but like there's like things like the world will hate you because like if you're standing firm in Christ. But it's remembering that like they hated Jesus too, like, and that's just like I guess it kind of like comforts me too. Not like comforting, but like it's like, but going back to that thing of like Jesus. Sorry, I say like a lot, but Jesus, he relates to everything. He's been through that, but what we've been through, like he's been through that first, 10 times worse. But like it makes it easier to go to him with things because it's like, oh, like you know exactly what I've been going through because like you've experienced that firsthand. Like you've been through that firsthand, and I guess it's like obviously like a pre-warning. But yeah, it's just really cool to have like someone who can sympathize with us.
Yeah, so I said like keeping God's foundation, it's constantly aspiring to have him in the center. But with Joseph, when he had the initial dream of his brothers like bowing before him, his journey was not linear in the slightest. He went up and down in the prison, the palace, like. But at the end of the day, that dream came to fruition because God wanted that. So I think definitely have like what does it mean to have Christ's foundation is a really important question. But I think what you spoke about really sums it up is aspiring to keep God in the center, and in spite of everything, like trusting God that he will see it through.
Yeah. And I think it is like an everyday surrender because like one day you could have Christ as your foundation, the next day you could have like something else as your foundation. But I think it's like an everyday surrender, an everyday choice. Like today, Lord, I want to like base my life upon you. I want to base like everything I do upon you, and I want to strive to like make you like the main thing of my life, I think. So yeah, like if you had to say about implementing it, I think that's what I'd say, like everyday surrender, but also praying about it, getting into your word, because the more you get to know God, and again, I'll always go back into like the word and praying, because again, the more you get to know God, the more you get to know his character, and the more you get to like but it's not just reading the word though, it's like letting his word actually change you, and you get to let that like become like the foundation of your life, because yeah, you just get to know more of like him and who he is.
Yeah, so true. And that pretty much sums it up.
Yeah. But yeah, thank you for watching, guys. Really appreciate it. We'll be back soon, and yeah, we'll be breaking down some more topics. So if there is anything that you hear a lot that's said, and you're like, what does this actually mean? To like, it's not like to like its fullness. And we can delve into that for you. And yeah.
Definitely, yeah. So thank you for watching, guys. Have a nice week.
Yes. Remember to like, share, subscribe. You know, I've been Janice.
I've been Devine.
And we are your hosts.
HYPOD.
Bye, guys.